Hello and welcome to Rappler Talk. My name is Amanda Lago. So, like many of us, actor and singer James Reid has turned into a true plantito during quarantine. He started an urban farming initiative called The Freshest in June and was also named the Food Security Ambassador for the Department of Agriculture. It's an interesting move for a young star like him. And today we have James himself here to tell us more about these projects of his. Hi, James.
Hi, Amanda. Thank you for having me.
Thanks for being here. How are you?
I'm good. Good. Keeping myself very busy.
Yeah, evidently. So, so you were named the DA's ambassador for food security. When did you decide to, take on this role and why?
Um, it wasn't intentional at the start. I really just during quarantine, you know, the first few weeks were really rough, and there's so much uncertainty. And I think I just kind of went into survival mode and started thinking about how difficult it was to get food, and I started getting into hydroponics. We wanted to build a hydroponics hub in my area, to kind of service the community. And one thing led to another. I met Secretary Dar, and I learned a lot from him. And it is quite daunting, kind of the situation that we have in the Philippines when it comes to agriculture and food security. The number of the age of farmers now is getting older and older, and our biggest import is food, and our biggest export is people. So it is quite scary to think of what's going to happen to the future generations. So one thing kind of led to another, and I just learned of all the problems, and I didn't want to be part of the problem. I wanted to be part of the solution.
Mhm. So that's interesting that it started with you going into survival mode basically and wanting to find a food source. Like how exactly like why did hydroponics, why was that the first thing that came into your mind and why was that the thing that you stuck to?
Well, hydroponics. I actually had a friend, Fiona Faulkner. She's the founder of the Freshest, not me. I just
Mhm.
joined and wanted to help out because it really interested me. But it seemed like a way that in such a crazy time that we could help the community. It's something that we wanted to get into. But really, all hydroponics is just creating food in tight urban spaces.
Right. So the freshest, what's happening with it now? Like what's the status of that project?
We will be pushing through with creating a hydroponics hub in Katipunan, near where I live. I think it's going to be about I forget how large it's going to be, but it'll be the biggest one in Katipunan. Also, I think in Quezon City. Hopefully, that'll be coming out soon. And we also have other projects that we plan to do later next year.
Oh, right. So the hydroponics hub is coming soon.
Coming soon.
Yeah. It's interesting because it sounds like these are very big, grand, like starting a hydroponics hub. It sounds so grand and so big, but um, I don't know, are there ways that people can get into urban farming and hydroponics themselves, like from their own homes?
Yeah. I mean, like when it comes to urban farming, it's just being like the best way to be part of it is to do it. There's you can grow your own produce at home, or even if you're interested enough, get like find a group of people like myself, and try and create a community farm. But it's really something you just have to get into, and it really starts at home.
Right. Did you start anything at home, like planting things at home?
Definitely, we started planning things at home. We're also building home NFT systems, which is a small hydroponic systems, for homes. So that will be coming soon. It's still a prototype.
Interesting. Like, what was the first thing that you planted when you were starting your own like little herb?
The first things we planted was what do you call that? Things like like really simple things like basil, other herbs, simple things.
Mm. So I guess that's where people can start as well. Yeah, I'm sure. Yeah, basil is like I've heard that it's very easy in a way to
That's
take
very
care.
easy.
Yeah. So a lot of your fans and your followers, they might not think of food security at the moment or sustainability. They might not see the urgency for it. But, as someone who has decided to take this on, like why do you think it's important that we're thinking of this right now?
I definitely say like if you don't think sustainability or food security is important, you need to wake up, or at least pay attention to what's happening in the world. I mean, I think I think the necessity for being alive or surviving is food, number one, and we just don't we take that for granted. I mean, in school we don't get taught how to be self-sufficient and grow our own food. We get taught how to, qualify for a job, and I think that's something that's overlooked. And if we don't know how to be, self-sufficient and independent, we rely completely on the systems in place for food transportation and food accessibility. And all it takes is something like a pandemic, um, you know, the COVID-19 or a typhoon, and the systems will come crashing down. So I'd say it is very urgent, and particularly for the youth, because if we don't get involved now, then we'll leave it up to the corporations to decide what our future is going to look like. And I don't think that our health is, on their list of KPIs.
Yeah, that's true. Like it's up to us really, not
Mm-hmm.
anyone else. Um, Coming from there, like if now we have to think about this, like where's a good place to start? Like in terms of resources, like example for me, I have no idea about urban farming. Where do I start? Like how do I learn about this? What's the first place I go to?
You can definitely do a lot of research online. That's honestly where I started.
Mm.
There are other companies also who are doing hydroponics, and it's easy to get into. And there's there are things that we're doing that you can participate in. For example, Reid is a design competition that we started. It's really just a matter of educating yourself.
Yeah. And now that you mentioned Reterra, can you tell us a bit more about this?
Reid, it's a design competition, and it really aims on integrating agriculture into the urban setting. So we're calling
Right.
on architecture students, designers, planners to help come up with innovative ways to make the cities a bit more green.
Right. And it's interesting because it's design. Like I wouldn't think that would be the first thing you would do to for food security as a solution for that. But why architecture? Why design?
Cities are built through architecture and design, and unfortunately, we've left out a key um, a key factor in having a sustainable city, which is food production and food accessibility. So at the beginning, we decided, me and Kat Incorporado, she's a local architect, we decided the best way to gather expertise to kind of solve these problems was to have a design competition. And we have really renowned guests as our judges. We have Secretary Dar, from the DA. We have architect June Palafox, Vico Soto. We have many more. And one of the co-founders is Michael Wensen Su. He is a thesis professor at the Pratt University in New York, which is regarded as probably the best design school in the world. So we're getting a
Mhm.
lot of support for this.
Mhm. And it's currently open for entries.
Yes, it is. We already have, since we started, over 100 applicants.
Wow.
And for each applicant, there can be in groups of 4 or 5. So we roughly have about 400 to 500 participants, which is a good sign. It means that the youth is really um, they want to be involved in shaping our future.
Yeah. It sounds promising, like hundreds of entries. Um, as what you're one of the judges also, along with the others that you mentioned. So, what are you looking for in the entries?
Yeah, I'm
Personally.
not like the other judges. I don't have the expertise that they have, but me personally, what I'm looking for are ideas that can really involve the community. Help create a community that's self-sufficient. A sustainable. Give them a sustainable source of living. Because really, that was at the core of why I started in the first place. I wanted to create something that the community can benefit from. So that's really
Mm.
what I'm looking for.
Okay, so something that involves the community, and the idea of community is something that you've repeated just throughout this conversation so far. Like it's also, I guess, at the core of the hydroponics hub that you're doing. So, like, how important is it to have a community if you want to start getting into hydroponics, urban farming,
Mhm.
sustainability?
I think it's really important to find people that are like-minded, that have the same vision as you, and are doing it for reasons that are bigger than themselves. And I think if we all start thinking this way, there's a lot of things that we can solve, together.
Hmm. And aside from urban farming and also like Reterra, like so rethinking the way cities are built, aside from these things, what
Mhm.
else, what other efforts can be done to address food insecurity?
I think the best way to address food insecurity is really to support farmers and fisher folk. Um, like I've realized that urban farming doesn't directly help them, but it's really the long run that we're trying to go for in raising awareness for the importance and the value of farming and agriculture. I mean, the government certainly is doing things like at the DA with the plant program and pag program, and they have zero interest loans for those who are trying to get into agriculture. And there are, even in the private sector, there are people like LN10 who are investing in farming, giving technology and giving them systems to maximize their produce. And for people like us, like consumers, I think the best thing we can do for now is really just to make sure that the money that we're spending is going towards food that is made in the Philippines. Like stop buying Korean products or Japanese rice. We have so much rice here. I mean, I don't know
Yeah,
what we do.
yeah. So it's also being more mindful.
Yes, and just to really, we have to start caring about food and the value that we give food.
Yeah, I'm just curious, like for you personally, how do you incorporate this into your everyday life? I mean, it sounds simple, but all the with convenience in mind and stuff, it seems it might be more difficult for other people. So how do you incorporate like mindfulness and sustainability in your everyday life?
Like for example, in the like as an entrepreneur and a business owner, like one of the restaurants that I have, we source all of our produce from local farms. That's just one way that you can support local farmers. But also, for me personally, the initiatives that I'm doing, next year I plan to travel around the Philippines when it becomes easier to travel and to shoot a docu-series really about agriculture and um, access to food and to really get to know the farmers more so we can, not, we won't solve all the problems, but at least it's a starting point and, you know, to see what we can do to help.
Right. And so you've been food security ambassador for like when was it? July was it that you joined DA
I
or
think
something
it was
like that?
earlier, it could have been maybe
Oh.
yeah, June or July.
Yeah. So in that time, like I'm sure you've learned a lot. Like you mentioned also, what's one thing that really stuck to you if you had to pin it down to one thing?
Um, I think it was really the first fact that really blew my mind was the average age of farmers is 57 years old, and
What?
it's only getting older. So I mean, you don't have to be an expert to understand that, in a few more years, there just won't be anyone interested in farming, and all the food we buy will be imported, which is a shame because we have some of the most fertile land in the world. I think
Mm.
you know agriculture can be something that the Philippines can be very proud of.
Yeah, that's super interesting. I didn't know that. So
And it's scary.
yeah, it is. It sounds like yeah, it's more urgent. It's more urgent an issue than people might think. So aside from your hydroponics hub, you also have Retera. You mentioned the docu series that you plan to do when travel is easier. What else other than this? What else? What other projects do you have in the pipeline as food security ambassador?
Um, as of now, those are the only ones. We're still, really trying to get this right. But in terms of projects that I'm doing, like I'm also still the head of my music label, which I'm running. So we are releasing a lot of music and other things as well. Living two lives, Farmer James or Plentico James and the Careless CEO.
Yeah, but that's interesting. But I'm sure you'll find a way to make these things work. Um, on that note, like the hydroponics hub, I just want to ask you a little bit more about that because it's interesting. Like it's under the fresh. It's gonna be under the freshest. It's one
Mhm.
of the initiatives of the company. Like how will it work exactly?
We'll be building, I think, uh, about 30 NFT systems, hydroponic systems, up near inside the pop-up Katipunan. It's right opposite Ateneo. We'll be building, NFT systems. It will also be storage you know, for food access and also produce coming in from other parts of the Philippines.
Right, and people can just go there and like get
Yeah, we're planning
produce.
to open up some. Originally, the plan was to create a farmers market, a drive-through for farmers market. But as the COVID is easing up, I think people will be able to come by physically and see
Right,
it. It will also be a learning center for hydroponics.
right. It just dawned on me that you're doing all of this in the middle of a pandemic. So how's that been? Yeah.
It's been crazy. But it's been quite crazy, but definitely worth it. It's definitely giving me a sense of purpose, and yeah, I'm enjoying it, and I'm learning a lot as well. So I think this is definitely the busiest I've ever been, willfully by choice.
Yeah. That's interesting. And that's coming from someone who's, been in the public eye for so long.
Right.
Yeah. So I guess on that note, what would you like to tell your fans and your followers? Like, I guess last words on why they should take this to heart.
I think because it is going to decide, our future, and as we come out of COVID, where everything wasn't working, as we recover, it's important that we fix a lot of the problems that were there before COVID. We don't just go back to the same old normal. So
Yeah.
that was a good chance for us to really start fresh.
Literally start fresh.
Yes.
Are you hopeful that we can do it? Like, is it possible?
Definitely. I mean, through my journey so far with in this year, there are people that want to make a difference, willing to change, and even through the design competition with all the entries that we have so far, it's looking very promising. So yes, I'm very hopeful.
Yay. All right. Well, thanks, James, for introducing us to this. I have to say, it's like a world that's a lot of people don't really know about yet. Like, who
That's
would
true.
think about urban farming, food security when everything is right out the door, right? But yeah,
Mhm.
thank you for talking to us about this, and good
Thank you.
luck all your future projects as food security ambassador. Yep, and thank you everyone for tuning in. This is
Thank
Rappler
you.
Talk.